A pleasant afternoon sailing on Port Stephens became a life and death struggle for 32-year-old Peter Barber from the Sydney suburb of Wollstonecraft. Crossing from Jimmy's Beach to Shoal Bay, Peter was caught in the run-out tide. His wife Mandy raised the alarm.
I knew he was missing around about 6 or 7 o'clock last night, and I didn't see him until 8 o'clock this morning.
The tide carried Peter past Yakabar Head, and with darkness approaching, he decided to scramble ashore at what's known to locals as Mrs Murphy's, an inaccessible and near vertical chink in the rocky coastline. The rescue helicopter, water police, rescue squad and Port Stephens Coast Guard and Coastal Patrol searched the heads all night. Scratched and bleeding, his board swept away by the current, Peter spent the best part of 10 hours clinging to the rocks. A searchlight picked him out late last night. Rescuers couldn't reach him until this morning. After being winched to safety at first light, the exhausted and embarrassed sailboarder underwent a medical examination. He was then reunited with his wife and their 5-month-old son.
We were both very relieved, very happy, and we're both just glad that he's still in the land of the living, I suppose. He's lost all his equipment though, all his sailing gear, but that doesn't matter, because we've got Peter back, and that's thanks to everybody in Shoal Bay, Nelson Bay Rescue.
Meanwhile, Lake Macquarie Police have raised concerns after they found an abandoned dinghy adrift off Bolton Point early this morning. Police found a torch, fishing tackle and fresh bait in the small fiberglass boat and have asked anyone who can identify the dinghy to contact Toronto Police.
The raid's codename Seawasp began at 6 o'clock this morning. 7 houses in Charlestown, Toronto, Edgeworth and Waratah were targeted. 5 people charged with various firearm offences. The most significant occurred at this house in Lindsay Avenue, Valentine. Police spent 7 hours searching the house. Scientific police took photographs of the haul. Just after midday, police loaded a rental truck and 2 cars with weapons and ammunition from the house. A man was also taken into custody. He's believed to be a licensed weapons dealer. According to police, the other 4 people charged are members of local firearms and shooters clubs. Police say they intend to make more arrests. These are just some of the illegal weapons seized by police this morning. In all, more than 300 weapons have been confiscated and around 28 prohibited firearms. They include 10 automatic weapons.
We're talking about automatic military rifles, we're talking about illegal handguns, we're talking about target pistols, we're talking about old-style replica pistols, homemade, we're talking about homemade silencers, and we're talking about small derringers.
72 police officers and 4 customs officers were involved in today's operation. Police believe they've cracked a major gun trafficking network operating in the Newcastle area.
We've had a lot of rumours about in Newcastle for some time about an alleged illegal dealing in arms, swapping and so forth, and I had no idea it would be of this magnitude.
All 5 people charged have had their gun licences suspended pending further police investigations. The weapons will be tested by ballistic experts to see if they've been used in any criminal activities. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It's not unusual to drink a nice red or white in the Hunter, but on Newcastle Harbour tonight they're honouring that drop from south of the border. More than 200 wines from Victoria.
There are other wines apart from the Hunter. The Hunter make excellent wines, and we're not retracting from them whatsoever, but there are wineries outside of the Hunter.
The Victorians say their wine has more diversity, and with 180 licensed wineries compared with about 50 in the Hunter, they may have a point. One of the best of the Vics, this 1991 Dalwhinnie Red. And it seems the locals are lapping it up. The wine tasting finishes on the South Stein at 8:30 tonight.
When stomachs rumble, there's a limited choice of eating places for shoppers in the Hunter Street Mall. The lease on this menswear shop runs out later this month, and an innovative solution to the gastronomic problem has been suggested. David McElwain and his partner plan to change their style. If approved, a coffee lounge brasserie restaurant will seat nearly 100 patrons. Most will be able to enjoy the atmosphere outdoors 7 days a week.
I think particularly Newcastle being the largest provincial city in Australia, I can't believe there's not an outdoor eatery on the mall.
Mr McElwain says there's a great need for what he's proposing, an example he hopes others will follow.
This small initiative might encourage other retailers of a similar nature and give them the opportunity to perhaps attract and tap the market that exists here.
If the idea is given the go-ahead at next week's council meeting, it's hoped doors will be open for business within 6 months. And that's when members of the public will be able to decide on the future of such a venture.
I think it's wonderful. It's what Newcastle really needs.
Anything that's going to attract people to this area of town's good.
Do you think it's something missing in the mall?
Yes. Yeah, it's fairly dead.
Outdoor cafe? Yeah, it'd be good.
Latest statistics show that children suffering from attention deficit hyperactive disorder are mostly young boys between the ages of 6 to 10. A child may be hyperactive if he's easily distracted, has difficulty completing tasks, is impulsive and highly active. A scientific study to determine the various causes of hyperactivity is being carried out at Newcastle's Mater Hospital under the direction of Dr Philip Hazel.
We are pursuing a hypothesis here that these children actually have normal attentional capacity, that is their ability to attend is just like any other child. The problem is they don't use it.
Around 200 children will participate in the 2-year study. If various tasks involving a certain amount of concentrated effort are successfully completed, the participant is rewarded. Results so far show that hyperactive children have the same attention capacity as normal children, but need a little extra motivation. Dr Hazel says the outcome of the study will help doctors assess hyperactive children more accurately and could change behavioural treatment at schools and in the home.
The Minister was in Port Stephens to inspect the damage. Growers here lost about 30% of their oysters in high temperatures. At Foster, losses were up to 80%. Oysters died at Torres, in the Camden Haven south of Port Macquarie and on the Central Coast. Overall, a multi-million-dollar loss. The Minister confirmed farmers could be in line for state disaster funding.
We hope can get some money from Treasury through the Rural Assistance Board. It'll be disaster funding, but I'll certainly be in there trying to get that because the industry is really on its knees at the present time.
Meanwhile, Port Stephens producers questioned the Minister on the future of the Sydney Rock and Pacific oysters. 16 months ago, the Greiner government took the Pacific off the noxious list in Port Stephens, allowing them to spread. Most local growers fought the move, fearing the Pacific would take over. Today, the farmers put out an ominous warning.
I don't think we'll have an industry in 4 to 5 years.
The Minister stated the decision would stand the Pacific oyster far too well established.
We're going to have to learn to live with the Pacific oyster. It's physically impossible to go out there and eliminate it.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's one of the most popular pastimes around. 25% of Australians like to throw in a line. In Newcastle last night, about 150 amateur anglers were fishing for some answers in a draft proposal to manage the sport. The National Steering Committee on Recreational Fishing notes fish stocks and habitats are under threat. About an extra $20 million is needed to address the problem. One idea is that users should pay. One option, a licence for recreational fishermen.
You can't have amateur fishing licences in saltwater areas because you won't have enough inspectors, and 1 in 4 people having to have a fishing licence just won't work, and no politician's going to see a person going to jail for not having a fishing licence to sit on a wharf and catch a bream.
Federal Primary Industries Minister Simon Crean has ruled out a fee, but the anglers are suspicious, fearing if Canberra doesn't slog them, Macquarie Street might. Meanwhile, a fish kill off Newcastle and Lake Macquarie beaches has been confirmed as some type of poisoning. Thousands of trevally and bream have been dying.
The symptoms that they suffered, which appeared to be engorged gills and so on, are in keeping with basically a death by heart failure, which could conceivably have been brought on by an acute toxin.
No fish have died in the last 24 hours. Fisheries officers are now testing pippies gathered on Stockton Beach.
Insurance assessors are working out what to do with the Angel One helicopter, which was extensively damaged when it crashed last weekend. It'll either be rebuilt or a new helicopter will be bought with the insurance money. Angel One was fully insured for $2.3 million, but this won't be enough to cover the cost of a new chopper. Alan McMahon says the service will have to rely on donations from the public to make up the shortfall.
We are going to need some money, that is for sure. Now, that exact amount I can't tell you at this stage until we get that word from the assessor.
In the short term, this single-engine Squirrel helicopter is being leased from a Sydney company. While it can do much of the hunters' rescue work, its capability is limited. Dr. Martin Rowley is often involved transferring patients by rescue helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital. He says the chopper, which is temporarily on lease from Sydney, is too small to transport some patients.
We can't move newborn babies. We have to use a Sydney helicopter to do that with.
Dr. Rowley says it's vital the permanent replacement is as large and as well equipped as Angel One. However, due to the limited number of suitable helicopters in Australia, the service may have to buy a new chopper from overseas.
So they crashed in here and then taken off?
54-year-old Father Holmes has worked for 30 years in the church, serving 8 parishes in the Newcastle Diocese. Tonight he'll be commissioned Archdeacon of Lake Macquarie, a first for the lake and a chance to explore new directions for the ministry.
Time's probably overdue that we should be giving more thought and planning to the whole Lake Macquarie area.
Father Holmes says he'll miss his congregation in Merriweather and all his mates at South Leagues Club. But based in the lake area, he'll have new challenges. The service begins at Christ the King Anglican Church, Toronto, tonight at 7:30.
The Open Foundation course has been educating mature-age students at Newcastle Uni for nearly 2 decades. The 12-month program offers 22 various subjects, equipping participants with the skills and knowledge needed to further their studies at a degree level. More than 600 students have already signed up. Jo May is one of the lecturers who'll teach class on a Saturday morning. She says the initiative is a sign of the times.
We have to be more flexible in our delivery of services like education. I think it says that there is a demand for education in the community, a thirst for knowledge and a need to reskill.
A former mature-age student herself, Jo believes the course is ideal for the over-21s willing to accept a personal challenge.
They get self-confidence, they suddenly realise that they can do it, and a lot of people left school thinking, well, I can't do study, I'm not capable, and then they come over and suddenly find that they can. So it's a wonderful awakening.
Prison officer Wayne Ward has been running hard since 6 o'clock this morning. He left from Maitland Jail and is heading for Sydney. Wayne Ward is raising money for Sydney boy Jack Hagan, who's suffering a rare immune deficiency and is desperately in need of a bone marrow transplant.
I just thought I'd like to do something to help him out. I've got 3 young children of my own and I've done a fair bit of running before that, and I thought, well, this might be the way I can make some money for him.
Wayne has already raised $7,500 for the sick boy and Prince of Wales Hospital. He plans to run the 186 kilometres with support from 13 other prison warders from Maitland Jail.
Oh yeah, I didn't come this far to stop. Yeah, I'll get down there.
Wayne will only be running during the day and expects to be in Sydney by Sunday. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Stuart Collins is an 18-year-old with a dose of determination that far exceeds his age. 3 weeks ago, Stuart had major ankle surgery to repair snapped ligaments. A week later, he was back in the gym trying to maintain his fitness, but still careful to keep his left leg immobile. Why bother, you may ask?
If you want to get anywhere in life, you got to really strive hard at it. And if I was just sitting down at home, I'd just become real lazy and don't think I'd be able to play football this year.
And that special quality boxing trainer Wal Bentley believes heralds greater things from the front row forward.
The dedication and the amount of effort they're willing to put in, the amount of sacrifice they're willing to make, that makes champions.
A footballer since the age of 6, Stuart spent the latter part of his teen years playing in the Newcastle Knights junior ranks. In that time, putting in some impressive form. In 1991, touring England with the Australian schoolboys, plus representing at state level. And last year, he captained Newcastle's victorious Jersey Flegg team.
Stuart's an intelligent player, and he understands when he does something on the football field, what impact that has on the defence of the opposition.
Going at his current pace, Stuart believes he'll be ready to take the football field in the Knights President's Cup side by April. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Saltash farmer Bruce McKenzie has made a living out of chasing cows. Now he says he wants to round up the bull in federal politics by standing as an independent candidate for the seat of Paterson.
Yeah, I'd round up them all because I think they need a bit of stirring. Not only the politicians but the fat cat bureaucrats, I think they need a bit of a serve.
While there's 9 candidates contesting the seat, Bruce McKenzie believes Mr Horn will be watching him in the pre-election tussle. In the Port Stephens Council chambers, their relationship was, in Mr McKenzie's words, prickly. So how will they get on during the campaign?
Mate, it could be prickly there because, I won't be attacking him personally. I don't know whether he'll ever go at me.
I've run a clean campaign. I'll continue to run a clean campaign. People obviously don't respect any politician that gets into the gutter.
I think he'll view me as a threat for him not taking the cushy job in Canberra.
When you're running a campaign, you worry about getting your own message across, and I'd suggest that everyone else does the same.
Bob Horn's campaigning has been bolstered by the results of the Maitland Mercury poll, in which he's shown as having 51% of the votes. That's well ahead of the Liberals' Bob Roberts on 37%, while the National Party's Gary Watson has polled 3%. Scott Bevan, NBN News. Almost twice as high as your average biker, more than a tonne in weight, and $100,000 to replace. The nuts and bolts statistics seem to fit a truck rather than a motorcycle. But then this monster bike is not your ordinary two-wheeler.
It's the biggest operational bike in the world. It stands 3 metres tall, 5 metres long, and is completely operational.
So can you ride it?
Definitely, yes. I've ridden it once or twice myself.
The bike was turning heads and craning necks in Newcastle's Hunter Street Mall, promoting next month's Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix at Eastern Creek. Although this sizeable cycle won't be competing, even Mick Doohan would rely on these training wheels to stay upright. How do you kickstart it?
You've got to have big feet. No, actually it's all electronic from inside. It's the same as a car engine mostly.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
There was a vast range of activities and exhibits at Lansdowne Park. Beef and dairy cattle featured, together with a pony club program and draft horse and harness exhibition. A good rainfall early in the season meant a high standard of fruit and vegetables from local producers. Meanwhile, in Coffs Harbour, fitness fanatics put their physical effort to good use. The Busybodies Aerobathon hopes to raise several $1,000s for Coffs Harbour and District Hospital.
It's been about 10 years since these street rodders pulled off the dust covers and headed out collectively, but that doesn't matter because they don't really get any older. In fact, they get newer. Take a pre-1949 era body and chassis, then add late model suspension, motors, disc brakes, auto transmission, dazzling paint jobs and body panels, and there you have an up-to-date street rod. Enthusiasts get a lot of fun out of building the cars, and they say driving them is something else again. The rods are a hit at local parades and functions and are often put to use for fundraising events. It's hoped the run will now be held annually. At Mayfield, it was many of the best 10-pin bowlers from around the state and country, with the first of 5 Grand Prix events on this year's circuit, the Newcastle Cup. Today it was down to a final 18 bowlers from more than 60 starters. The only woman competitor, Newcastle's Sharon McLeish, bowing out yesterday. Each remaining finalist had to bowl 17 straight games. Sydney's Fred Alsop playing for a fourth Grand Prix title. Young gun 21-year-old Billy Gardner powering his way toward a third. Locals Robert Thompson, Terry Mayer, Craig Hulls and Peter Zambellis in the bidding for $8,000 in prize money. At the end of the day, though, it was state rep and Sydney sider Andrew Frawley who took the cup. To cricket, and they were on the ball at Maitland for the Eddie Hill 10 overs comp. In all, 78 teams took to 20 fields. The matches played in tandem with under-16's Hunter Valley finals. 4 Sydney clubs made the trip, each player except the wicket-keeper bowling an over. Stateside 12th man Wayne Holsworth bolstering a Waverley team. Play reached the semi-finals before rain forced a washout. A little mud wouldn't have gone astray for the Interclub Series Junior Dirt Track finals at Kurri Kurri. Almost 100 4 to 15-year-olds gritted their teeth against the dust for the last of a 3-meet series raced on the Central Coast and Maitland. Dirt Track is a nursery for tomorrow's road races, with sponsors now showing greater interest in such meetings. The famous Norton motorcycling name has come on board to promote its new rotary design engines. The controversial 500cc models, now wowing the world circuit, may eventually be produced and ridden by Aussies such as these.
The idea has been proposed by the City Centre Committee. They want Council to remove all meters within the CBD.
They're a real deterrent. The basis of fines is the same as the Sydney fines, and they're just far too high. And we feel there should be some more flexibility, which would be available by removing the parking meters and replacing it simply with signs for periods of time.
Peter Evans says it's about improving the city.
The City Centre would like to see them removed. Basically, we're about attracting more people to the city of Newcastle and making it a more attractive place for business people, for people to come and shop and for people to come and carry out the professional requirements they have in the city.
There are around 1,400 parking meters in the city, which generate more than $670,000 a year for Newcastle Council. It's an income earner which Council won't easily give up. The money is used by Council to pay off loans on the Bolton and King Street parking stations, but those loans come to an end in 1996. The remainder of the money is put into a special account. It's now more than $1.5 million. The City Centre Committee's proposal has the backing of the Chamber of Commerce. Newcastle Council will consider it within the next few weeks. But Director of Community Services Keith Swan believes the current user pay system is fair and equitable, and the loss of income would have to be made up elsewhere. Mr Evans has an answer for that.
Because ultimately, by increased patronage in the city centre, the value of properties will go up, businesses will improve, and council will be able to extract a little bit more from business proprietors by way of rates.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Water Resources has been studying the algae levels in Black Creek for a week. Today, the Hunter Water Corporation admitted it could be the culprit that set the bloom off.
Yes, I think the sewage plant certainly is a main contributor, and the stormwater runoff from the urban area in Cessnock would be the other one.
The corporation releases treated sewage into Black Creek, phosphorus nutrients in the waste enriching the natural algae growth in the water. Peter Phillis says farmers in the region utilise the effluent to irrigate their crops, a type of recycling. If the blue-green problem gets worse, the effluent may have to be chemically treated.
We've looked at phosphorus removal at Cessnock Treatment Works, but we'd have to use a chemical process, and that produces a chemical sludge, and so it's a matter of tossing up which is the best environmental solution to recycle it for irrigation or to treat it with chemicals.
Tests on the creek show the algae levels are now well below health recommendations.
Now at Sydney's Water Police headquarters, the 7-metre shark catamaran is undergoing final work before it takes to the water. In a few weeks' time, she'll make her way north, replacing Belmont and Toronto that have carried out various police operations on Lake Macquarie for nearly 13 years. Since November, 4 water police officers have been assigned to the service, with Newcastle controlling all operations.
We didn't know what was going to happen at first or how it was going to work out, but it's definitely now, it's working really well.
Fitted out with the latest in radar equipment and rescue operations, the new launch is expected to arrive sometime next month. According to those at the front line, Macquarie won't be the only welcomed addition to the service.
It'll be a far better rescue vessel compared to what we have had in the past, but then that's the sign of the times, and we're very fortunate enough to be having 4 of these new shark cats being dispersed along the coastline.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. These potential employees are learning the finer points of the trade. Now based in new premises in Hunter Street, the Tourism Training Centre has instructed students in the hospitality field for the past 5 years. And it's not only those wanting to enter the industry who have benefited.
We train people, unemployed people in the area, as well as supervisory in the industry, management, frontline staff in the industry as well.
According to John Purcell, the industry has not escaped the clutches of economic hard times. Last year, only 66% of those who finished one course found work. But rather than take a defensive approach, the training centre is preparing the way for a brighter hospitality future after the recession.
And we're looking at keeping the staff levels to a good level so that when we eventually come out of the recession and the demand there for trained staff happens, we want to be able to meet those demands immediately.
The protest was part of a national day of action, timed to coincide with the Year of the Indigenous People and the lead-up to the election. Around 50 protesters decorated the outer gates of the Boral woodchip holding facility, highlighting the fight against the destruction of native forests once occupied by Aborigines.
All the forests that these woodchips come from originally were Aboriginal land. Now, we've displaced Aboriginal people from their land. Wilderness is Aboriginal land. There's no two ways about it.
Security guards took extra measures. Police were called in to keep the protest a peaceful one. Although the environment is running behind the major issues of unemployment and the GST, it's still an important concern for many voters. The Wilderness Society says it will be the Green vote that helps sway the election result.
If the major parties do step up their campaign on the environment and start looking at wilderness issues in particular as endangered species, then I think they'll start getting a few more Green votes, which will probably sway the power.